Verstappen Silverstone did not finish maybe the moment Red Bull's biggest fear became public. Because this was not just an accident. This was Max Verstappen, out of the British Grand Prix, after another race-ending setback entered a season already surrounded by reliability questions, engine issue headlines, and Red Bull technical changes. That changes everything. 1 did not finish can be bad luck. 2 can become pressure. But when Verstappen keeps appearing in stories about retirements, engine trouble, and Red Bull finding causes behind previous failures, rivals stop asking one question, and start asking a much more dangerous one. Not, can we beat Max on pace? But, can Red Bull actually keep Max in the race? That is the crack every rival has been waiting for. Because Verstappen can fight a faster car. He can fight pressure. He can fight strategy. He can fight from behind. But he cannot fight a race that ends before the checkered flag. And the source does not provide Verstappen's exact post-race quote, so nothing should be invented. But the bigger picture is already clear. Silverstone did not happen in isolation. It landed on top of recent reliability concern, an earlier did not finish engine issue trouble, and a major Red Bull change after the cause of his Monaco retirement was found. That is no longer noise. That is a pattern. And if Verstappen's reaction after Silverstone showed even a hint of frustration, doubt, or impatience, then Red Bull's problem is no longer only mechanical. It is psychological. Because once the most feared driver on the grid starts questioning whether his car will survive, the entire championship begins to look different. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Verstappen Silverstone did not finish felt so serious, you have to understand what makes him different from almost everyone else on the grid. Max Verstappen does not usually look like a driver waiting for the race to happen. He looks like the driver forcing the race to happen. That is his identity. Pressure becomes his weapon. Chaos becomes his opportunity. A bad start, a difficult balance, a rival trying to attack, none of it usually makes him look vulnerable for long. He has built his reputation on turning uncomfortable moments into control. But a did not finish is different. A did not finish takes control away completely. There is no recovery drive. No late attack. No tire management masterclass. No aggressive overtake to rescue points. No clever strategy to repair the damage. Once the car is out, the driver becomes a spectator, and for Verstappen, that is one of the most unnatural positions imaginable. That is why Silverstone mattered. Because the British Grand Prix did not just give Verstappen a bad result. It placed him inside the one situation even the best driver cannot overpower. A race ending before he can finish it. And that changes the conversation around Red Bull immediately. Because when Verstappen is beaten on track, Red Bull can study pace. They can adjust setup. They can analyze tire wear. They can ask where the rival was stronger and how to respond at the next race. But when Verstappen does not finish, the question becomes much darker. Can the car be trusted? That question is brutal for a championship team. Because speed only matters if the car reaches the checkered flag. A fast car that stops is not a weapon. It is a warning. A brilliant driver with a fragile package is still vulnerable. And in Formula 1, rivals do not need many warnings before they start believing the door is open. The source material around this topic points to more than just Silverstone. It connects Verstappen's British Grand Prix did not finish with wider reliability pressure, including engine issue headlines, an earlier did not finish, and a major Red Bull change after the cause of his Monaco retirement was found. That context is what makes this story dangerous. If Silverstone were just one isolated accident, Red Bull could contain it. They could call it bad luck, repair the damage, and move forward. Formula 1 teams do that all the time. But when Silverstone lands on top of previous reliability concern, the meaning changes. Now people start asking if this is a pattern. And in Formula 1, the word pattern can damage a team faster than one failure ever could. A single failure is explainable. A pattern creates fear. Inside the garage, fear does not always look dramatic. It does not always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like longer engineering meetings, more careful radio messages, more conservative settings, more questions before a session, more attention on data that nobody wanted to worry about before. That is how pressure spreads. Quietly. Mechanics feel it because every part of the car suddenly carries more emotional weight. Engineers feel it because every temperature, vibration, and warning light becomes more suspicious. Strategists feel it because a retirement changes the value of risk. The driver feels it most because he is the one sitting in the machine, trusting it at full speed. And that is the core of the Verstappen story. Trust. Verstappen's driving style depends on absolute commitment. He brakes late because he believes the car will respond. He attacks fast corners because he believes the rear will stay with him. He fights rivals aggressively because he believes the machine underneath him will survive the punishment. Take away that belief, even slightly, and everything changes. Not in a way casual fans always notice. Verstappen may still look fast. He may still sound direct. He may still say the team will analyze it and move on. But at this level, a tiny doubt matters. 1% less confidence can change a breaking point. One small hesitation can change an overtake. One question in the back of the mind can change how hard a driver pushes when the race is on the edge. That is why his reaction after Silverstone matters so much. The attached source does not provide his exact quote, so the words should not be invented. But the reason people care about what he said is obvious. When a driver like Verstappen speaks after a did not finish, everyone listens for the deeper meaning. Is he treating it as bad luck? Is he warning that the problems cannot continue? Is he protecting Red Bull in public? Is he frustrated with another lost opportunity? Is he calm because the team understands the cause? Or is he calm because he knows saying too much would make the situation worse? That is the strange power of a post-race interview. Sometimes the most important part is not what a driver says loudly. It is what he chooses not to say. With Verstappen, that matters even more, because he is not usually a driver who hides discomfort behind empty words. When something is wrong, his tone often tells the paddock before the official explanation does. And Red Bull knows that. Because Verstappen is not just one part of the team. He is the center of the entire competitive project. The car is developed around extracting performance for him. The strategy is built around maximizing his race. The pressure, the confidence, the fear rivals feel, all of it flows through him. So when his race ends early, the entire Red Bull machine feels exposed. That is why Silverstone changes everything. Not because one did not finish destroys a season. It does not. But because it changes the question the paddock asks. Before, rivals may have been asking, can we match Verstappen's pace? After Silverstone, the question becomes, can Red Bull keep him in the race? That is a much more dangerous question. Pace problems are visible. You can see them on the timing screen. You can chase them with upgrades. You can adjust the car, change the wing level, improve tire use, and fight back. Reliability questions are different. They hide. They appear suddenly. They make every strange sound feel important. They make every sensor reading feel tense. They make every driver comment sound like a clue. They make every technical change feel less like progress and more like proof that something had been wrong. That is why the Monaco reference in the source matters. The source says Red Bull confirmed a major Formula One change after the cause of Verstappen's Monaco did not finish was found. That does not prove Silverstone was caused by the same issue. It does not give us permission to connect technical causes that are not in the file. But it does show that Red Bull had already been forced to respond to a serious retirement cause. And when a team has already made a major change after one did not finish, another race-ending moment arrives with extra weight. That is the problem. Every new retirement gets added to the story. Not fairly, sometimes, but inevitably. Formula One is a sport of memory. Teams remember. Drivers remember. Fans remember. Rivals remember. One technical issue becomes part of how the next issue is interpreted. One failure makes the next failure more suspicious. One did not finish makes the next did not finish feel less random. That is how momentum turns against a team. And Red Bull's rivals will feel it. They will not need Verstappen to collapse. They will not need him to lose speed. They only need to believe that Red Bull is no longer bulletproof. That belief is powerful. Because for a long time, Verstappen's greatest weapon has been inevitability. If he is in the fight, people expect him to find a way. If he has clean air, people expect him to disappear. If he starts behind, people still expect him to climb. But retirements break inevitability. They remind the grid that Verstappen is still tied to the same truth as every driver. The car must finish. And if it does not, the aura takes a hit. That is why the accident and did not finish at Silverstone were so damaging emotionally. They did not only remove Verstappen from the race. They changed how others might race him next time. A rival who once expected Verstappen to be unstoppable may now push harder. A team that once played safe may take a strategy risk. A driver who once thought second place was the best possible result may suddenly think, stay close, because Red Bull might open the door. That kind of belief can reshape a season. It starts quietly. A rival smells weakness. Then another. Then the paddock begins speaking differently. Not publicly at first. Publicly, everyone stays careful. They say Red Bull is strong. They say Verstappen is still dangerous. They say one race does not define anything. But privately, the calculation changes. If Red Bull's reliability is uncertain, every race becomes an opportunity. And that is why Verstappen's response after Silverstone matters more than a normal interview. He has to control the narrative. If he sounds too angry, it tells rivals the pressure is real. If he sounds too relaxed, Fans may wonder if he is hiding frustration. If he blames the team, the story explodes. If he blames bad luck, the questions remain. That is the impossible position after a did not finish. There is no perfect answer, because the result itself is already loud. The car did not finish. That sentence beats almost every explanation. And for Red Bull, the only real response is not words. It is reliability. Clean weekends. No repeated failures. No more unexplained retirements. No more headlines about technical causes. No more reason for rivals to think Verstappen can be beaten by the machine before they beat him on track. That is the only way to stop this story growing. Because once reliability becomes the narrative, every tiny problem feeds it. A practice issue becomes a warning. A radio complaint becomes evidence. A component change becomes a headline. A garage delay becomes suspicion. Even a harmless sensor check can be interpreted as panic. That is the cost of losing trust. And Silverstone made that cost public. The first major lesson is simple, but brutal. Verstappen's did not finish did not only cost him a result. It gave the rest of the grid permission to believe Red Bull can bleed. But the second layer is even more dangerous for Red Bull. Because a did not finish does not only damage the points table. It damages the feeling around the team. And in Formula 1, feeling matters more than people admit. A team can have data. It can have simulations. It can have factory updates, power unit analysis, race pace charts, and endless engineering meetings. But the paddock often moves first on instinct. It watches body language. It listens to tone. It studies whether mechanics look calm, whether engineers look tense, whether the driver sounds confident, and whether rivals suddenly start smiling a little more. That is why Verstappen's Silverstone reaction matters. The source does not provide his exact words, so the exact statement cannot be quoted. But the reason the reaction became so important is clear. After it did not finish, Verstappen's tone becomes evidence. His frustration, his restraint, his silence, or his confidence can all change the way people interpret Red Bull's situation. Because after one failure, a team explains. After repeated concerns, a team has to convince. That is a much harder job. The source connects Verstappen Silverstone did not finish to wider reliability pressure, including engine issue headlines, an earlier retirement, and Red Bull confirming a major change after discovering the cause of his Monaco did not finish. Those details create a very different background than a normal accident. They create doubt. And doubt is toxic for a team built on domination. Red Bull's greatest strength has never been only speed. It has been certainty. The feeling that when Verstappen is in the car, the team will execute, the machine will survive, and the result will eventually come toward them. That certainty makes rivals nervous before the race even begins. But reliability problems attack that certainty directly. They make rivals think, maybe we do not need to beat Max every lap. Maybe we just need to stay close. Maybe we just need to collect points when Red Bull stumbles. Maybe the machine that looked unstoppable is not as safe as it seemed. That is the psychological shift. And once rivals believe that, the racing changes. They push harder in qualifying because pole position feels more valuable. They attack earlier in the race because they want to force Red Bull into stress. They gamble on strategy because a vulnerable favorite invites risk. They keep pressure on Verstappen because every extra lap under pressure increases the chance of a mistake, a temperature spike, a technical alarm, or another uncomfortable radio message. That is how a reliability story becomes a competitive weapon. Not because rivals can cause the failure, but because they can increase the pressure around it. Imagine a boxer with a damaged hand. The opponent may not know exactly how bad it is. But once he suspects weakness, he starts aiming at that side. He forces more exchanges. He tests the injury. He makes the weakness prove it is not real. Formula 1 teams do the same thing. If they suspect Red Bull is managing reliability, they will force Red Bull to use the car harder. They will push them into aggressive strategies. They will try to keep Verstappen from controlling the pace. They will make every stint more uncomfortable. That is why Silverstone matters beyond the retirement itself. It gives rivals a target. Not a guaranteed weakness. A target. And that is enough. Because Formula 1 is not only about who has the fastest car on paper. It is about who can apply pressure until the other side cracks. Sometimes that crack is a slow pit stop. Sometimes it is tire degradation. Sometimes it is a strategy mistake. And sometimes it is reliability uncertainty that forces the team to make decisions it would not normally make.